Hey everyone, welcome to another time-lapse video. This video was created from a full-length tutorial that I have made for my patrons. If you want to check out the full-length tutorial, you can support me at patreon.com. The link is in the video description below. Alright, this is a long tutorial. It's actually 1.5 hours long. I split it into 3 parts. The first part talks about me penciling the sketch. I use pencils to mark out different areas so that I can ink it later on quicker and more accurately. So sometimes I do use pencil, but sometimes I do not. It really depends on the complexity of the scene. If it's really complex with lots of challenging angles, lots of details, very weird perspective, then I am more likely to use pencil. But if it's a straightforward scene, then I'll just skip the pencil stage and go straight with ink. If I do not have time, I will go straight with ink as well. Now if this scene looks very familiar, it's because it's the same scene that I have drawn a few days ago while I'm outdoors at Tiong Bahru. So this is the same scene that I drew outdoors, but for my patrons, I'm remaking the scene into a tutorial because it's actually quite an interesting scene. There is one-point perspective, but I have chosen to hide the one-point perspective behind the wall because during that day while I'm outdoors sketching, I did not have a lot of time. I do not want to draw that vanishing point. That's why I hide it with the wall. So as you can see in this particular sketch, I have all the pencil lines marked out, just the most important lines marked out, and now I can ink the sketch. With the important lines marked out, what I mean by important lines are basically lines that help divide the sketch into different areas. Like if there is a huge wall, I may draw the top line, the top of the wall, and the bottom of the wall, and the sides of the wall. So that would be 4 lines. That will mark out the wall on the page. And with that wall marked out, I can actually divide that wall again into different sections, and using this division, I can divide it smaller and smaller. I can use that to place other elements on the wall, like the doors, the plants, the air conditioning units. It's just an easier way to sketch when you have areas marked out. I could have gone with sketching with ink straight away, but the challenge is because this perspective, this is a one-point perspective, I would try to draw from left to right. If I do not plan it out in pencil, I may run out of space on the right side later if I did not get my proportion right. So for example, if you take a look at the wall on the left side, if I were to draw that wall too big, then I will not have any space left on the sketchbook to draw the flat wall that is facing me on the right side. So getting the proportion right is very important if you want to fit everything into the scene, if you want to fit the things that you want into the scene. And if you're not confident with getting your proportion right, you can always start out with pencil. There's nothing wrong with starting out with pencil. And if you want to, you can erase your pencils later on, or if you don't want to, you can just leave your pencil lines in the sketch, like I have did with this particular sketch. Alright, notice that there are a lot of lines pointing to the vanishing point, the top of the wall, the top of the air conditioning units, the top of the doors, the bottom of the wall, the bottom of the doors. They all point to the vanishing point. If you mark out the vanishing point in your sketch, you can very easily just draw those diagonal lines pointing to the vanishing point. This is actually a much better way, a more accurate way than drawing from observation. Sometimes the angles can be a bit tricky. You may get the angles wrong, but if you have already set a vanishing point in your sketch, all the diagonal lines that point to the vanishing point, you can just draw them to the vanishing point. You don't even have to look at your scene anymore. So that's a very useful tip that I learned during my sketching journey. Alright, for the watercolor, I'm using burnt sienna and French ultramarine. For this particular sketch, I am trying to paint it with as few washes as possible, so that I do not let my watercolor sketch look too patchy. If you paint with too many washes, if you go on glazing layers after layers and touching up your watercolor sketch every now and then, it's going to look very patchy. You can do that with oil painting, you can do that I think with other mediums, but with watercolor it's best to use as few washes as possible, so that your wash it will not look overworked. And now I'm going to paint the plants. I'm using yellow because for plants it's green in color. So to mix a green color you have yellow and blue, so there's always yellow in green. So that's why I painted with yellow first for the plants. And not just that, I also used the same yellow to paint the pipes, the yellow pipes. The yellow is actually a mixture of lemon yellow and new gum wash. If I use lemon yellow straight from the pen, it's going to look a bit weird, because in real life I think only lemons are bright yellow. Other than that, it's very rare for you to see bright yellows like this in real life. Yellows, pure colors in real life, it's almost unheard of. So it's always best to mix some of the colors before you put them on the paper. If not, the colors they are going to look a bit too clean, too glaring, too unnatural. So after the yellow has dried, I am painting some of the greens. For this particular green, I think it's actually cannot remember what green I use. Probably the yellow mixed with ultramarine or sap green, which is another green that I love to use. Alright, for the dry green, the dirty green, that's definitely mixed with ultramarine. If you want to get your greens a bit darker, like if you want to paint the shadows in the plants, you can add more ultramarine and burnt sienna, so that will give you a nice dark shadow. For example, now I'm painting the shadows beneath the air conditioning units. That is actually a mixture of ultramarine and burnt sienna. I wanted to create a soft shadow effect because it's a cloudy day. There are no harsh shadows, so all the shadows, they are very soft. So for the shadows earlier that are painted below the air conditioning units, after I painted the wash, I washed my brush and loaded it with clean water and tried to fade out the shadows. Basically let the shadows blend into the color of the wall to create that soft shadow effect. For this particular sketch, I started with lighter colors, and then I added mid-tone colors that are a bit darker, colors that are a bit more punchy, have more contrast. And then lastly, the last stage that you're looking at right now, I am adding the dark areas, the shadows, the strong blacks, just to make the scene pop, just to give extra contrast to certain areas. The sketchbook that I'm using is a Hanamule watercolor sketchbook. I will try to paint with this as often as I can and then put out a proper review soon. So far so good, it's able to handle watercolor quite well. Oh, I'm putting some dots using the white gel pen. This is the Sakura Jelly Roll, Gelly, yeah, it's quite a good gel pen. The white is quite opaque. Now when I'm putting the dots on the ground, I try to put more dots in the foreground than in the background, because details in the background, they are a bit difficult to see, and because of that you should put less details there. So in the case of me putting white dots, I should put more white dots in front rather than at the back. So that's about it for today's time-lapse video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to check out the 3 full-length tutorials I have made for my patrons, you can support me on my Patreon page. The link will be in the video description below. Patreon, by the way, if you do not know, is actually a monthly subscription service where you can pledge a certain dollar amount to support the artists that you like. So for me, I use the money to get stuff to feature on my YouTube channel, such as art products, drawing tools. I also use the money to pay for my website hosting fees, which is quite expensive, and I save the rest of the money for rainy days. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.